Cost of living. Cost of living is something that we have to talk about because it is people are being affected in such a way that they're losing hope. And that's been apparent for a while in the UK, but it's becoming worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And it's something that's not just to the UK, it's a worldwide thing. Inflation, interest rates, and then pressures on supply chains. And there's a number of reasons for it. There's a number of reasons why there is a cost of living crisis, certain shortages, and one doesn't have to be a financial expert to understand why this system happened and how it is, why it is there. But there are certain things that can be done, but lies being peddled as well. And my biggest one that I consistently think of is the North Sea gas one with cost of living. The UK pays more for our for energy costs than any other European country. And why is that? Because our energy generation costs are pegged towards gas prices. And that's why we pay way more. But now we have seen, and there's been so much data on it, that green energies, renewables, actually cost less to generate and it costs less to create the infrastructure for it. But the net zero brigade, anti-net zero, look where their funding comes from. It comes from the fossil fuel companies. Now, net zero is great for people because it will mean that we will be less reliant on fossil fuel shocks. It will make us less reliant on importing energy because we can generate our own energy. Everybody goes on about solar. Yeah, the UK doesn't have a lot of solar capability, but what the UK does have is two things: waves and wind. And that is something that can be harvested. But then the anti-net zero brigade comes out and says, no, it costs too much. No. Then they say we should drill more. The North Sea fields are there for drilling. But that's not going to do anything for us because those people who go and drill are private companies. The concession just gets handed out to them and the government gets a percentage of it. But it's not lowering our prices because they're selling it on the open market. They're not selling it back to the UK. It's being sold on the open market on an open market capitalist price. Therefore, the price goes up and we pay more and more and more. And these companies make more profits, and we don't see the benefit of allowing them to destroy the planet and our livelihoods because they are drilling for more fossil fuels. Our cost of living crisis is so directly tied in with greed. Houses not being built, which creates inflation because there's a shortage of housing for people. Then greedy landlords, corporations purchasing housing stock to rent it out at inflated prices. Go have a look on Rightmove at rentals, London rentals, a 2-bed place in Zone 5. You're looking at around about £2,500 for a 2-bed place. Who can afford that? What kind of salary do you need to have to afford £2,500 for a 2-bed house? Rentals have skyrocketed, but salaries have not. The same goes for other costs. Food costs have skyrocketed, salaries have not. Fuel prices have skyrocketed, salaries have not. Last year was the first year where we noticeably saw, since about 2023, after the last little shock with Old Tracy, we started seeing an easing on the cost of living in my personal household. And we could see finances easing a little bit, and we were like, this feels good. Because prior, we never used to really look at prices going shopping at the supermarket. You take what you need, go pay for it, and go. And then we started like paying attention to the prices because suddenly a shopping trolley that was 50 quid went 70 quid, 90 quid, 120 quid. That same shopping trolley from 2016, which was 50 quid, same trolley is now 190 quid. But my salary has not gone up by that much. Rentals at one point were affordable. I won't say very affordable, but one could get by. Now people can't. Let's talk about petrol prices. 30% increases in petrol prices, but salaries have not increased, and that was over 2 weeks now. The cost of living crisis is affecting everybody, and the ones who are responsible for the current big blip are billionaires who are sitting there happily going like, well, it's not affecting them. They're happy. The ones who play in the stock market and on the stock market making millions on trades for oil right before the news hits with them shorting or longing on the market. But the rest of us can't. The rest of us don't have that luxury of knowing when the market is going to go up and down because somebody is doing insider trading. At the end of the day, if a government in Europe, in some European countries, especially in the UK, could just grow the backbone and say, all people should pay their fair share of tax. That would be amazing. I know they're going to be like the brigade going on and saying, well, there's too many people on benefits. Not really. There's a lot of people who are working who have benefits. And why? Because their job is not paying them enough to live. So they have to get aid from the government to be able to live. But who are the benefits grounders? Oh, it's the big corporations who hardly pay any taxes. It's the multimillionaire billionaires who pay no taxes. Why is Rishi Sunak's effective tax rate lower than a person earning £20,000 a year? Why was his tax rate lower than that? Because he could afford really good lawyers, tax loopholes, and Bob's your uncle, he pays almost no tax. Have all of you forgotten about that little story that came out about him? Has everybody forgotten about how these big corporations are hardly paying tax, and then during the start of the Ukraine war, the absolute ridiculous increases in our energy costs, which then came apparent that the oil companies were making massive profits because of this. And then when there was a call to tax these unexpected profits, then the oil companies were crying foul, and the Tories were all crying foul, and Reform were crying foul, and these windfalls were not earned. But we all have to live with that, and we all have to live with these increased prices just to make these really big corporations and big people happy. But we all are struggling. We all are struggling every single day to make ends meet because of who? The ones who get all the breaks. The ones who don't want to carry their share. The chaps who own Bath Rugby Club and is pro-Brexit but lives in Monaco. Or the people who own JCB and Dyson. Dyson, brilliant, backing Brexit, and then he goes off to Singapore, closes his manufacturing plants over here and moves over to Asia. Really, 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 really nice chap that. So, and he's not paying taxes over here. So cry me a river if you are a Reform voter and you are struggling with the cost of living crisis. I have sympathy for people who actually are going through things and need to figure out life and are really struggling. But if you have successively voted for the leopard to take off your face, then you deserve what comes to you. They're in the open telling you what they want to do. They're in the open saying that they want to make our cost of living worse. Free market capitalism does not work. It has been proven. We're in late stage capitalism now where we have barons, people who are filthy rich, and the rest of us are struggling to get by. Corporations buying up other corporations. Look at your high street. And everybody in local groups going, oh, the high street has fallen down. The high street has got nothing. Yes, but all of you are buying from Amazon. All of you are buying everything online. All of you are going to big supermarkets, hardly going to the high street to purchase anything. Because the high street can't stay competitive. And you complain because another bubble tea shop has opened or a barber around the corner has opened. That's the complaint. But are you supporting the local community in purchasing from local stores? And when I say local stores, I don't mean supporting the local WH Smith or the local Greg's or the local Mickey D's, because that's not local. I'm talking about the local bakery around the corner, the local sandwich shop, the local butcher, the vegetable and fruit guy. Those are local people that you can support, but they don't get supported. And then all these same Brexit voters goes, oh, we've lost our heritage. Yeah, because you allowed capitalism to become the thing. The same lot of you are talking about 15-minute cities. 15-minute cities would alleviate cost of living pressures, firstly, because why? You would have more stuff in your local area which you can get to within 15 minutes of your house. It's not about locking you in a 15-minute boundary. It doesn't make sense. It won't work. What it does do is, the idea is to have services within 15 minutes from your house. GP, shopping, schools, all of these things within 15 minutes of your house. And that will revitalize the local community and the local shops on the high street in your area. The little corner shops. All of these things would get revitalized. Why? Because that would then create footfall towards it, because you have more reason to walk and to get around in your local area. That will also drive down your petrol costs because you don't have to drive miles and miles on end to get to a retail park, because you will have everything there. It's really easy to understand how things work when you take a step back, you take off those goggles, those Daily Mail goggles, and you just start to think critically about what you're being fed. We consistently have to listen to how we're getting more and more migrants or anything just to create that fear, create that fear, create that fear. But our cost of living is not going down. Well, our cost of living is not going up because of the fear. And it's not going down when you fear more. It's just that you don't look at your cost of living when you're in that much fear of migrants. Unfortunately, we're at a point in time where it seems like Stockholm syndrome within the right wing is there. It's either that people are so indoctrinated now that they can't see that they were led astray, or that they feel so ashamed that they can't backtrack because people will call them out for backtracking. Now, if you are honest and you say, yeah, I made a mistake, and there's a lot of Trump voters and reform voters who've come out and said, yep, they made a mistake. They shouldn't have. I feel for them because I feel that they understand that they have a load of blame and shame on them for doing that. But they've taken the step to say, yeah, my bad. Famous case now in the USA of a farmer, 3 times voted for Trump. He has to sell his family farm that they've had for 140 years in the family. Why? Because he voted 3 times for the guy who started the war, who increased prices for fertilizer, who has dropped the milk price, that he was selling milk for $20 per however much, and it was costing him $30 per however much to make. So he's losing $10 each time. So He's in the FO part from FAFO. 3 times he voted for a man who you knew and can see was going to make you poorer. So if you're still thinking about voting for the man on this side, who you can see is going to make us poorer, nothing he says is going to make you richer. Tax cuts, not going to happen for us. It's going to happen for the top 1%. He wants to cap the child benefit, and then he wants to drop the price of a pint by a couple of pence. What's that going to do for everybody? Keep pubs open? No. Pubs have other pressures as well, apart from the price of a pint. Pubs have pressures on leases, on electrical costs, on staffing costs, on food costs that's shooting through the roof. That's where their costs are sitting, not by the price of a pint. And dropping the price of a pint by a couple of pence is not going to draw more people going into the pub. If you couldn't afford £5 for a pint, and now it's suddenly £4.45. Are you suddenly going to have now, oh, now I can have 2 pints or 3 pints? No, you still can't afford it if you couldn't afford it at £5. But they play that little game and go like, oh, well, this is going to happen here. A couple of pence? No. If you just, it's pure, simple, elementary maths. Like primary school kids understand this much better. So why can't adults who supposedly have gone through primary school not understand this? But yeah, start holding these people accountable. The ones who are responsible for our cost of living crisis. Why are billionaires making more money during a cost of living crisis than we are? What are they making back and we can't? Why can't our lives ease off and they can buy their 3rd yacht or go as a space tourist? Ask yourself that. And then see who they are backing. Just look who they are backing. And then we have a discussion about that. But until later, ciao, ciao.